This is Dr. G. Anita Siva, Department of Chemistry, Dr. S.N.S. Rajalakshmi College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore. In this third video, we will be discussing about Vat Dyes in individual. Vat Dyes, as the name implies, they are, what is it, dyeing is carried out in buckets or vats. So they are called as Vat Dyes. In Tamil, we call them as Thotti Sayakam. Okay, so initially in ancient days, when they started using vat dyes, the dyeing process was carried out in vats. Okay, so that picture is only shown here, but uh, but nowadays it has been improved, but still we give the name vat dyes. They are a class of dyes uh, which are classified based on the mode of application. We would have heard about the dye indigo. It is one of the very famous vat dye, and it is the first used natural vat dye. Okay, so it is obtained from plants earlier, but nowadays it is also produced synthetically because of the heavy demand. This indigo dye is the dye which is commonly used for dyeing jeans, right? The blue color jean. Okay, so that is the actual color of jean, but nowadays we are manufacturing or else dyeing jean in different colors. Actually, these dyes or these the vat dyes, they are insoluble in water. This is one of their drawback. So this insoluble dye has to be made soluble in water. So for that, that is making them water soluble, they require a reducing agent. So initially we will go for reduction to convert them into insoluble form to soluble form. So the reducing agent will convert the dye to its leucoform, that is soluble. The soluble form of vat dye is called as leucoform, and then it is taken for dyeing. When it is dyed, it is getting attached to the fabric, and the leuco dye is then oxidized to the insoluble state, which is intensely colored. So chemical reactions such as oxidation, reduction, pH control are often necessary for dyeing to happen. So as we already know, the dye is soluble only in its reduced form. So the fiber is immersed repeatedly in this oxygen-free dye bath, then exposed to air, whereupon the water-soluble reduced form changes color as oxygen turns into the water insoluble form. See here you see the insoluble part of dye is taken for reduction. When you go for reduction, you can use either sodium hydroxide in presence of hydrosulfite, and this has become now solubilized form of vat dye, and in the presence of OH minus, and then it is used for dyeing absorption and then oxidation, wherein the soluble part of dye becomes again insoluble, so that improving the washing fastness. For these reasons, vat dyes are less suitable for fiber reactive dyes. So as I told you earlier, indigo is an example of this dye class. It changes from yellow in the dye bath to green and then blue in this air hits it. It's magical, right? Actually it is yellow in color. In the dye bath, when it is reduced, it becomes green, and then when it is get again oxidized, it becomes blue, what we observe in the jean pant. So not all vat dyeing is done with vat dyes. The mechanism or else the procedure of dyeing. First one is aqueous dispersion, where else the insoluble vat dye in this stage is dispersed in water. There is no solubility will happen, so you make use of sodium hydroxide and sodium hydrosulfite for completely solubilizing the vat dye. So sodium hydrosulfate is used as the reducing agent. So again, it is by neutralizing their hydroxide to give a water soluble product. So sodium hydroxide is also used as the solubilizing agent. So sodium hydrosulfite as a reducing agent and sodium hydroxide as a solubilizing agent. Now, this vat dyes, they get absorbed in the fabric in the soluble form in the alkaline, from the alkaline reducing medium. And now reoxidation of vat dye is required so that the soluble form is converted to insoluble form. Now, when you expose, you need not go for any other chemical treatments. Chemical oxidation is also done, but you can also make use of the atmospheric oxygen. That is simply by letting the fabric which is being dyed with using Vat dyes to in open air. So the oxidation in which the soluble form of the dye is absorbed by the fiber is reconverted into the original insoluble dye by atmospheric oxygen. That is simply by airing or by use of chemical oxidation. So these are the steps to recall. First you go for reduction, which will help in solubilization of the Vat dye, and then dyeing process, and then oxidation, which will help in fixation of the Vat dye, and then you can take for drying. Okay, thank you.